The wind whistles between the peaks. The snow never melts, and white mountains tear through the clouds. The cold penetrates to the bones. Rocks defy time. And storms erase everything in their path. The dawns stain the snow with blood. Sunsets freeze even your breath. And at night, avalanches roar like ghosts in the darkness. On the horizon, a sleeping giant emerges into view, blurring the boundaries between reality and imagination. The summit, a distant dream fixed in the heights. Welcome to the place where Earth collides with sky. This is Everest, the highest mountain on the planet. Here, heights cease to be a number and become a threat to survival. Winter, more than a season, is a perpetual state. And with this, the cold is the true ruler of life on this sleeping giant. However, in what is supposed to be an inert place, where the abysmal heights and freezing temperatures have eradicated all possibility of survival, nature, as if faced with a challenge, not only resists but thrives. Amidst the most hostile living conditions, wild species show their purest and most untamed side, staring icy death straight in the eye and living to tell the tale. Amidst the harshest snowstorms, the yak endures firsthand the full inclemency of the perpetual Himalayan winter. Pikas, tiny survivors, take refuge underground from the harsh climate, surviving the onslaught of low temperatures in relative luxury. Meanwhile, the red panda wraps itself in its thick tail to avoid hypothermia during the freezing nights. Every wild species does what it must to avoid perishing in this white world, where heights threaten life. The black bear, a giant beast, rummages through the convalescing vegetation in search of food. Even a few insects or fresh berries are a feast in this world of austerity. The baral, a high-altitude herbivore, grazes on vertical slopes thousands of meters high, where only it enjoys the freshest grasses. Meanwhile, the musk deer tirelessly chews through every last moss in its path, in a superhuman effort to avoid succumbing to hunger. But perishing in the face of the harsh climate and an unprecedented food shortage are not the only challenges facing some of the wild inhabitants of this imposing mountain. When predators lurk, frigid living conditions become a minor threat compared to the danger of falling prey to the jaws and claws of the food chain's dictators. Hidden among the slopes frozen in time, the mountain ghost, a cold and calculating feline, sets its sights on its next victim. When the snow leopard stalks, there's nothing its prey can do. One leap, one swipe, and it's over. In these same rugged terrains where even the smallest life form is a miracle, wolf packs fiercely dominate the food chain. A deep howl echoes through the mountains, and the entire pack is ready to unleash its full terror. Thousands of meters high, the bearded vulture, an ace of the Himalayan skies, peers intently into the horizon in search of fresh carrion. In just seconds, this cunning vulture carries the remains of the victims of this ecosystem's hectic wildlife to the heights, dropping them from vast distances. This is wildlife on Everest. Hostile, fragile, delicate, but at the same time fascinating. Located in the middle of the rugged Himalayan mountain range on the border between China and Nepal, with an altitude of 8,848 meters, Mount Everest stands as the highest mountain on the planet. Immersed in a geological massif where peaks such as Lhotse and Nuptse also emerge, each over 8,000 meters high, Everest is more than a mountain. It represents an entire ecosystem, where fauna and vegetation have adapted to the harshest living conditions. At lower altitudes, up to approximately 4,000 meters, dense coniferous forests, filled with pines and firs, dominate the view. Here, the vegetation is much more abundant, and even during the warmer months, shrubs, grasses, and even wildflowers fill these mountain strata with vivid colors. Ascending a few thousand meters, the trees become extinct, and sparse grasses, mosses, and lichens appear attached to the rocks. Beyond 6,000 meters, vegetation becomes almost non-existent, and except for a few lichens, no form of plant life manages to thrive. Like vegetation, temperatures are a true reflection of Everest's altitude. While in the lowlands, the thermostat can even reach pleasant temperatures of around 25 degrees in summer. At an altitude of around 6,000 meters, extreme cold is the norm, with an eternal winter, where temperatures constantly remain below freezing. The summit, undoubtedly one of the most hostile places on the planet, is punished by bone-deep cold, where temperatures as low as minus 60 degrees Celsius are a daily occurrence. Here, hurricane-force winds of over 300 kilometers per hour turn this corner of the world into hell on Earth. While the summit of Everest, at over 8 kilometers high, is an inert place where no macroscopic life form could thrive, at about 4,000 meters from the highest point in the world, the story is entirely different. In these mountain strata, against all odds, wildlife flourishes in all its splendor, with blue goats running among the rocks, deer devouring the few shoots, and marmots emerging from their burrows. However, in less than a second, this entire scene of pacifism and extreme survival is corrupted by a crude and grotesque act of savagery. With a cold gaze and an icy wind whipping through his thick fur and a thunderous howl, the alpha gathers the pack for an impregnable hunt. Immediately, following the leader's order, the pack gathers together. While, with a weight of up to 45 kilograms and a powerful jaw capable of crushing bones, it is quite a feat for a prey to survive a wolf. When a formidable pack of these predators comes to the fore, it is almost impossible to escape. Not even the low temperatures of Everest are able to limit all the hostility and savagery displayed by these predators when their stomachs rumble loudly. With a robust appearance, Himalayan wolves are perfectly adapted to living in an ecosystem plagued by sub-zero temperatures. Their dense woolly fur, with a thick undercoat, provides them with enviable thermal insulation, allowing them to stay warm even on bitterly cold days. Its face, relatively large compared to its body, has an elongated snout and erect triangular ears well covered with hair, which guarantee survival against hypothermia. Strong, muscular legs with well-padded pads are ideal for walking on snowy and rocky terrain, as is abundant in their vast home on Mount Everest. Whether through the alpine forests of the lowlands or the rugged terrain of the mountain slopes, packs rule the food chain at will, inflicting terror on species such as blue sheep, Himalayan taurs, deer, pikas, and even the glorious yaks. The slightest trace of a footprint, or the stealthy scent of a trail is more than enough for the alpha to give the command, engaging the pack in a new hunt. Thanks to their highly advanced sense of smell, these clever dogs can detect even the faintest scent of an ungulate up to several kilometers away. Prodigious eyesight and enviable hearing are also part of their innate abilities to find their disadvantaged prey. With up to 8 members in the group, only a large prey can satisfy the appetite of these fierce hunters. In a habitat as hostile as Everest, wolves always prefer to limit their efforts to large-scale hunts, rather than capturing small prey, which will not provide significant amounts of meat. Having determined the location of their prey, the pack marches with a firm step towards their future victim. Following what appear to be deer tracks, through howls, head movements, and body postures, the alpha develops a very complex hunting strategy that minimizes its prey's chances of survival. With their victim already on the horizon, the wolves rely on their unparalleled stealth to approach the deer with the utmost caution. Their fur in shades of white, brown, and gray camouflages the canids with disturbing efficiency, making them disappear among the limited vegetation and pale surroundings. Since failing a hunt could jeopardize the survival of the pack, the alpha plans every move, ensuring it ends with his bloody bite into the juicy flesh of the deer. With each wolf involved in the hunt, the alpha gives the starting command, and breaking his stealth, rushes at the ungulate. Although the deer undertake a rapid escape across the slopes, the strategy of these carnivores is not based on a surprise attack, but rather on a prolonged endurance race, in which each member of the pack actively participates, limiting the prey's escape possibilities. Having no alternative but to succumb to hunger, the canines vigorously stalk the ungulate, not wavering in their determination to give it a painful death. After a strenuous run, the deer's legs begin to fail, and each step becomes a challenge. Between the demands of the terrain and having a whole hungry herd of carnivores behind it, the inevitable happens, and seized by panic, the ungulate gives in, being cornered by the pack, which soon gives the mammal an honorable yet painful death, using its powerful bite. After the pack has hunted down a voluptuous prey, the predators set out to devour it. Of course, although anarchy may seem to reign at these feasts, the truth is that these canines are governed day after day by a strict hierarchical order in which, among other privileges, the alphas are fed first. Having devoured almost all of the prey, leaving only a few bones, now with their stomachs full, the pack looks for a cozy place to rest. Since snowstorms with strong blizzards and freezing temperatures are a daily occurrence in their habitat, when they are not chasing unlucky prey over vast distances, the dogs take advantage of the opportunity to rest, and above all, shelter from the icy elements. Caves, rocky outcrops, and even rudimentary burrows are ideal places to spend a well-deserved rest. During this time of relative relaxation, away from the stress of hunting, wolves tend to strengthen their social relationships. Through interactions such as games, simulating wrestling, and pulling objects, the dogs create an atmosphere of harmony within the group, which ensures the unity of the pack. When a wolf, in particular, attempts to break away from the established social hierarchy by rising in rank, the alphas are quick to remind the rebellious dog of its place, subduing it through loud howls and elaborate body postures. Although each canid is a formidable beast, the secret to these predators' survival lies in their pack life. Living in numerous and well-coordinated packs is what makes it possible for them to capture copious prey that far exceeds them in size. One of these is precisely a gigantic bovid weighing up to a ton, adapted to life at more than 6,000 meters high. For the enormous yak, altitude is nothing more than a number, as this robust mammal sees its isolated habitat as the perfect place to thrive. With its exorbitantly long fur, the yak has perhaps the best natural coat in the entire mountain range to survive the sub-zero temperatures. A small hump on the shoulders, as well as very long curved horns up to a meter long, present in both females and males, make these ungulates an unmistakable species. These same rocky slopes and snowy areas that might be considered by other wild species as barren places for life are seen as a welcoming habitat by this skilled survivor. Thanks to its very dense fur and thick layer of body fat, the yak is able to withstand the harshness of the Everest winter. Even though the thermostat drops to -40 degrees Celsius and hurricane-force winds whip through its mountain hideaway, this bovid doesn't even flinch at the harsh living conditions. Just as it is adapted to the extreme climate, while for other wild species finding food in these steep terrains is a challenge, the yak finds a feast in these rugged soils. As a herbivore specialized in the consumption of high mountain vegetation, alpine herbs, mosses, dwarf shrubs, and sedges are part of its very low nutrition diet. The low quality of its diet, combined with its enormous size, means that yaks must spend up to 12 hours a day grazing. Walking slowly through the vast alpine meadows, this ungulate carefully rummages through the ground, alert for the slightest sign of anything that even looks edible. To locate its limited food sources, the horned wolf uses its highly sensitive sense of smell, which can detect even the smallest grass, even several hundred meters away. Even when its sustenance lies beneath a thick layer of snow, the yak has no qualms about using its strong hooves and large head to dig up what it considers to be exquisite snacks. While this giant's fibrous diet of grasses and sprouts is somewhat questionable in its nutritional value, thanks to a highly advanced digestive system, it is able to get the most out of every bite. Like any good ruminant, after its long grazing walks, the herbivore spends hours chewing its partially digested food again, ensuring that not even the smallest nutrient goes to waste. Although they manage to absorb small amounts of water from their very dry diet, these ungulates often actively seek out wetlands, small rivers, or puddles where they can drink. Although when freezing temperatures take hold of its habitat, it shelters from the cold among rock formations. If, surprisingly, the thermostat rises, in a demonstration of its adaptation, the yak can even wallow in available water sources to keep cool. Since their demand for food is not particularly low after grazing in an area for a while, resources generally quickly become scarce, and the herbivore must seek new horizons. Aside from their frightening appearance, which might suggest territorial behavior, both males and females are highly social, having no objection to interacting with their peers. Females, along with their young, can even form large herds of up to hundreds of individuals, which becomes quite a spectacle to see so many giants taking over the heights. Males, on the other hand, are somewhat more flexible in their gregarious behavior, being able to live in complete solitude, as well as inhabit small bachelor groups. These groups, often formed outside of the mating season, are vitally important for when the rut begins, when the large males will compete for access to the females. In these herds, the testosterone can almost be smelled from miles away, with these robust bovines competing to be the dominant member of the group, in what is a kind of training for the mating season. In establishing hierarchy, size and physical strength are everything. Often the largest and most muscular yak dominates the group, But of course, this authority is often tested. The oldest and most experienced males also tend to have a privileged position in the group, a result of both their size and their reputation in combat. Of course, with young males hungry for power, there is never a shortage of challengers intent on taking over the dominant position. Here, intense ritualized fighting takes place, in duels that, while rarely ending in the death of one of the yaks, involve vigorous headbutting, butting horns, and displays of strength. The duel often ends when one of the males, overcome by fatigue, decides to give in to his opponent, accepting his defeat with submissive behavior. Although many ungulates choose to live a life of complete solitude, living in these groups brings with it convenient advantages in terms of protection from predators, warmth, and of course, preparation for the rut. While the enormous yak endures the harshness of life at the heights of Everest, the tiny Himalayan pika proves that you don't have to weigh a ton to make a name for yourself in this wild ecosystem. Weighing around 150 grams and measuring no more than 20 centimeters, these tiny mammals are another of the incredible life forms adapted to the challenging altitudes of Everest. Living in rocky areas near coniferous forests, the compact pikas not only survive, but are one of those fascinating wild species that even thrive despite harsh climatic conditions. Like the giant yak, this lagomorph also boasts a very warm coat that allows it to stay warm, even on days when Everest shows its most hostile side. Unlike their rabbit cousins, pikas have small, rounded ears, which limit heat loss. Their legs, despite being surprisingly strong and with enviable traction ideal for rocky terrain, are quite small, fitting perfectly with their small body size. To complement its adaptations to extreme cold, this skilled survivor often lives in comfortable burrows between rock crevices or cozy tunnels, where it manages to shelter from sub-zero temperatures. They often prefer to live in complete solitude, or perhaps with a few conspecifics nearby, but they almost always choose to lead a solitary and reclusive life. While during the freezing nights they huddle inside their rudimentary shelter, during the day it is time to get down to business, emerging from their burrows in search of food. Since it does not hibernate, the small pika cannot simply fall into a deep sleep when its habitat turns white and requires food all year round. This is why, when the relatively warm days of summer arrive, when the thermostat can even reach 20 degrees at these low altitudes, the clever pika takes advantage of the opportunity to store food for the winter. Although during this warmer season, Everest does not present itself as a generous habitat, much less a wasteful one of food. Tirelessly digging in the ground, it does find alpine grasses, reeds, mosses, lichens, and, when there is a bit of luck, even wildflowers. Every little bit of food counts when the mammal has experienced firsthand the hardships of winter austerity. A humble bundle of herbs, or perhaps a fresh moss, anything goes to satisfy your appetite. Thanks to its extensive knowledge of the territory, this tiny furry creature is able to optimize its foraging time, and, using its powerful incisors, can cut through even the finest grass effortlessly. In addition to its strategy of storing food in mounds of grass called nests, the pika, of course, can't help but devour vast quantities of those plant-based snacks it stumbles upon. Having a high intake allows you to store a significant reserve of fat, something that could save your life when food is scarce. In addition to taking advantage of the warmer days to forage, With the bright sun shining so high above, the mammal never misses the opportunity to take a relaxing sunbath, which helps it warm up a few degrees. No small feat when you live in the frigid ecosystem of Everest. Of course, the pika can't afford to completely relax because you never know when a voracious predator is lurking, wanting to make it its prey. Although its meat, weighing no more than 200 grams, does not represent a substantial contribution to food. In this hostile ecosystem, no prey is neglected. Golden eagles, owls, red foxes, and even wolves see the small pika as juicy prey with very little effort, so they will not hesitate to devour it if they have the opportunity. To escape the clutches of death represented by a ferocious bird of prey or a hungry canine, the pika always remains alert to its perimeter, wary of even the slightest movement that might seem suspicious. Their first line of defense to avoid ending up in the jaws of a carnivore is their advanced camouflage. The brownish-gray to reddish tones of its fur help it hide perfectly in rocky environments, allowing it to go unnoticed when hungry predators are nearby. Of course, when directly threatened by a hawk, or perhaps a fox, using its muscular legs, the pika will not think twice and will begin a quick escape to the safety of its burrow. Boasting surprising agility in these rugged terrains, it is capable of leaving its pursuers behind in just a few seconds. Often, as soon as a pika spots a voracious predator lurking nearby, it will immediately emit a distinctive hissing call, intended to warn neighboring pikas of the threat. Although they are not at all social, their alarm calls are a very effective method of collective defense. By alerting their peers to an impending attack, deaths in the colony are limited, increasing the chances of survival for all mammals. Likewise, upon hearing this particular screech, the predator knows it has lost the element of surprise, so it often decides to give up its attack. Screeches can also sometimes be used to mark territory, urging a fellow animal to turn around and abandon its intentions to enter another's territory. This territorial behavior is simply a survival measure, ensuring the exclusiveness of their foraging areas and avoiding unexpected visitors to their burrows. With a growing food supply inside their shelter, losing this invaluable pantry to theft could prove fatal when cold temperatures take hold in their little corner of the mountain. Just as the tiny pika withstands the ravages of the weather in the rocky areas of the mountain, a few thousand meters closer to the base, on the slopes covered in temperate coniferous forests, a peaceful mammal moves among the dense vegetation. Devouring an exquisite bamboo stalk, the red panda appears on the scene, like one of those amazing creatures that manages, defying the odds, to survive such an inclement habitat. With thick, glossy, reddish-brown fur, the red panda bear bears little resemblance to the Asian black and white bear. Its rounded head, with white spots around the eyes, which contrast with its reddish coloration, gives it a captivating appearance. A long, bushy tail, with alternating rings of reddish and dark brown, is one of its most striking features. In addition to its lush fur, this mammal often uses its tail as a scarf, wrapping it around itself when temperatures are dire. The densely forested slopes are ideal for the arboreal lifestyle of the exotic red panda. Thanks to its short, strong legs, crowned with sharp, semi-retractable claws, this mammal is a prodigious tree climber, capable of traversing branches with enviable dexterity. To maintain balance during its acrobatics in the trees, its long tail serves as an excellent counterweight. Its arboreal behavior allows it to stay off the radar of most of the predators that rule life within this habitat. Since a small pacifist mammal weighing no more than 6 kilograms doesn't inspire much fear, the red panda must rely on stealth to evade the many carnivores who see it as mere prey. Cunning predators, such as the snow leopard, the clouded leopard, or even ferocious birds of prey, can take on the task of subduing this peaceful mammal with their impregnable hunting skills. To evade these perpetrators of savage killings, the panda chooses to leave its entire survival in the hands of its advanced stealth. Although its reddish fur might seem to present a target for predators, the truth is that it camouflages itself among the moss and lichen-covered trunks that abound in its habitat, creating the perfect disguise against the most hostile predators. By remaining motionless and curled up on its own body, the red panda manages to go completely unnoticed, staying off the radar of carnivores who would literally kill for a piece of its flesh. Although at first glance, its stance against the stalking of bloodthirsty predators will always be to remain hidden, when cornered, this mammal is capable of leaving aside all its pacifist temperament and becoming aggressive in a desperate attempt to save its life. When a snow leopard, or perhaps a golden eagle, directly threatens the panda, it steels itself, adopting a threatening posture, rearing up on its hind legs to appear larger and more intimidating. While this may seem like a far from desperate measure, it can sometimes yield surprising results, deterring predators from attacking. Having avoided becoming part of the diet of heartless carnivores, the red panda now sets out to satisfy its own appetite. Despite being classified as a carnivore, and in fact having a digestive system perfectly adapted to meat consumption, surprisingly, this mammal chooses to eat a primarily herbivorous diet. Although not at all related to the panda, this mammal has a deep fondness for tender bamboo shoots, which make up the majority of its diet. Although digesting these branches and leaves can be somewhat laborious, the lack of competition for this food guarantees a nearly endless source of sustenance, no matter how harshly austerity-stricken its habitat may be. Of course, when his home on the slopes of Everest proves unusually bountiful, with fruits, berries, and acorns sprouting everywhere, this adaptable survivor doesn't hesitate to devour such tasty treats. When foods as varied as roots, eggs, insects, and even small vertebrates are available, the red panda displays its omnivorous nature, immediately incorporating them into its diet. Their ability to adapt their diet to the fluctuating food sources of their habitat is one of the keys to their survival. While other species with somewhat finicky appetites find themselves starving to the bone when their limited food options are limited, the red panda never says no to even the most modest food sources. Although it can more easily satisfy its appetite when it finds nutritious food, such as fruit or insects, by consuming its main food, tender bamboo shoots, the red panda can forage for up to 13 hours a day. During this marathon search for food, the self-proclaimed herbivore consumes up to 4 kilograms of bamboo, only then managing to satisfy its nutritional needs. Their slow and methodical movements when searching for food are offset by a very sensitive sense of smell, which functions as a kind of natural radar to locate those exquisite shoots. Carefully rummaging through the undergrowth and moving from one branch to another, the mammal inevitably reaps the rewards of its patience, devouring what, for it, are succulent snacks. Thanks to its false flea, the panda is able to manipulate the branches it obtains at will, focusing its bite on the most nutritious areas of the shoots. When not engaged in a relentless search for food, he is likely curled up on a comfortable branch, wrapped in his tail to conserve body heat. This amazing creature sleeps for around 10 hours a day, giving deep rest the value it deserves. Another task that often occupies their not-so-busy routine is grooming and licking their striking fur. Annoying incursions, it dedicates a significant part of its day to marking its territory, leaving its scent through its anal glands, urine, feces, and even scratching its body with tree bark. While the red panda in the lush forests of the hillsides brings color to this vast ecosystem, in the rocky areas where the steep terrain rises as far as the eye can see, a pale predator hides amidst the rugged terrain. In a habitat where a profound silence pervades the ecosystem, the stealthy snow leopard appears like a ghost, a majestic creature, yet at the same time a ruthless killer, capable of slaughtering anything that crosses its path. With a dense, soft coat ranging in shades from pale smoky gray to yellowish cream with dark rosettes, this feline, in addition to being able to withstand low temperatures without even flinching, manages to disappear from view amidst its rocky and snowy surroundings. Its head, with a relatively small snout and ears, minimizes heat loss. Its large, pale green eyes stand out with a penetrating gaze that reveals death itself. While other wild species could never take even a couple of steps on this rugged terrain, the mountain ghost is able to move with disturbing dexterity, using its sturdy, heavily padded feet. Like the colorful red panda, this feline uses a long tail, up to a meter long, as a counterweight when walking on unstable terrain, and sometimes also acts as a warm scarf. Given the scarcity of prey that often plagues its isolated habitat, this imposing hunter often dominates vast territories of up to tens of square kilometers, where it imposes its will as the apex predator. After several days of starvation upon finding prey, the leopard knows well that failing a hunt could literally cost him his life, so, with a Himalayan blue goat, his favorite prey, before his eyes he plans every last movement of his attack, in order to be successful. Despite feeling his stomach growl loudly, the feline does not despair, because he knows well that his best weapon is infinite patience. Watching from a nearby rocky cliff, the predator watches for even the slightest movement of what it hopes will become its victim. Using its camouflaged fur, the feline remains hidden until it is close enough to its prey. After stalking the ungulate from the shadows for several minutes and even hours, the ruthless hunter sees his opportunity and, with a leap of up to 15 meters long, falls upon the defenseless prey, who until just a few seconds ago was peacefully foraging among the rocks. Faced with such an impregnable attack, the chances of survival of the prey are, to say the least, reduced. Typically, the feline does not prolong its hunts, and after only a few seconds, it puts an end to the killing with a powerful bite directly to the neck or throat, suffocating it or fracturing its neck. Since it often satiates its appetite with around 5 kilograms of meat, when it finds abundant prey, the feline usually stores the leftovers in a safe place, such as a rocky ledge or a crevice. In these makeshift pantries, the feline manages to protect its hunt from potential scavengers who would like to seize a substantial prey with minimal effort. After stuffing itself with juicy blue goat meat, the feline can take up to 4 days to eat again. But, being an all-powerful apex predator, the snow leopard does not limit its ferocity to these sheep. A wide variety of ungulates, such as ibex, Himalayan tahr, and musk deer, may also fall into the sights of this skilled hunter. Likewise, smaller prey such as marmots, pikas, hares, and even some rodents can complement a strictly carnivorous diet. While his habit of storing carrion allows him to make the most of his hunts, it can sometimes also lead to some less than pleasant encounters. The fresh smell of meat can travel for several kilometers in the icy air, reaching the very sensitive sense of smell of Himalayan wolves. As soon as they perceive what is for them an exquisite aroma, the dogs will begin a direct march to the feline's domain. While against a canine, the snow leopard can prevail, thanks to its more robust body and sharp claws capable of delivering bloodthirsty swipes. Against an entire pack, the feline can do nothing but try to flee, preserving its life. The wolves, relying on their overwhelming numerical superiority, can quickly corner the leopard, claiming the prey as their own, and even inflicting dangerous wounds on the mountain ghost. However, in most cases, the feline's unsurpassed agility allows it to escape unharmed through the rugged terrain, watching in the distance as wolves take the fruit of their hunt. Another unfortunate visitor a snow leopard may receive is precisely the incursion of one of its fellow species. With a highly territorial temperament, the feline does not tolerate the slightest encounter with one of its peers, so it usually delimits and patrols the borders of its domains in order to avoid invaders. By marking with urine and feces as well as scratching trees and rocks, the feline leaves clear warning signs at the boundaries of its lands, as a clear deterrent to outsiders. Of course, although extremely intimidating, these danger signals are not always heeded by the invaders, who, determined to expand their territory, are willing to engage in a bloodthirsty duel where their powerful bites and sharp claws will be used as weapons to inflict the greatest pain. As these whitish felines duel for ownership of Everest's rocky slopes, back toward the temperate broadleaf and coniferous forests, a robust black beast appears from the dense vegetation. The Himalayan black bear, a massive creature weighing up to 200 kilograms, is another species that makes the hostile ecosystem of Everest its home. Although very far from the summit, settling at no more than 4,000 meters, the mere existence of this mammal at such altitudes is a challenge to nature. Its very dense, woolly black coat is ideal for keeping warm in an environment where sub-zero temperatures are a daily occurrence. On its chest, this giant sports a characteristic creamy white V-shaped marking, which makes it stand out. His rounded, abnormally large ears protrude from his head, as well as a light-colored snout that contrasts with the dark, night-like tones of the rest of his robust build. Except during the breeding season, the black bear usually spends its days in the forest in complete solitude, with no company other than the leafy trees that fill this area of the mountain. Speaking of trees, this mammal displays both terrestrial and arboreal behavior, not hesitating to climb them when the situation warrants it, whether to rest or escape predators. Thanks to long claws measuring up to 5 centimeters and muscular legs, no tree in this vast forest can resist the mammal's climbing skills. Likewise, these versatile claw-like tools allow them to dig into the ground with impressive skill, managing to find all kinds of delicacies in the form of roots, bulbs, and even fresh insects. But the diet of the giant Himalayan black bear is far from restricted to these snacks. Fruits, berries, acorns, young leaves, honey, rodents, birds, and even musk deer can all be devoured by this glutton at any moment. The black bear is the perfect example of an omnivorous species, simply devouring anything that crosses its path without even questioning what it is. Thanks to its ability to move with enviable agility, both on the ground and through the trees, this cunning survivor can scour every inch of the forest in search of vegetation. On his walks through the forest, he turns over the ground, lifts rocks, and even tears off bark, trying to find insects, fruits, or anything else that can satisfy his stomach. During this foraging time, their keen sense of smell plays a crucial role, perceiving even the most subtle of aromas. In its acrobatic walks through the trees, the bear actively seeks out fruits, nuts, and even, why not, plunders birds' nests or juicy beehives, instantly devouring both the nutritious insects and their fresh honey. When their habitat goes through the warmest seasons of the year, the mammal takes advantage of this opportunity to satisfy its appetite, consuming up to 15 kilograms of food a day, including insects, fruit, meat, and anything else it finds in its path. Unlike the small pika, which refuses to hibernate even when temperatures hit this ecosystem with all their might, the black bear chooses to sink into a deep sleep rather than experience the austerity of winter firsthand. For this reason, during the summer days, it is almost exclusively dedicated to building a body fat reserve robust enough to get through the agonizing months of starvation. With the calendar moving ever faster, and winter days just around the corner, the bear intensifies its search for food, exploring new foraging areas and alternating this vital task for its survival with well-deserved rest, sleeping among thick undergrowth, on the ground, or even inside cozy holes in trees. While the black bear usually appears malnourished before the warm season, having survived a harsh winter, after several months of enjoying unprecedented abundance, this giant has gained several dozen kilograms. This gigantic size, in addition to serving to store huge amounts of fat that it will consume throughout the freezing winter, is a deterrent against ruthless predators who might, in a delusion of grandeur, want to gut the colossal black bear. Although bear cubs may be threatened by hunters such as wolf packs and solitary snow leopards, given their large size, the adults do not usually allow themselves to be bothered by these predators, preferring to avoid any confrontation, rather than engage in a fight that could result in at least a couple of serious wounds. With winter slowly taking over what was once a cozy home, the mammal is busy preparing its burrow to withstand the ravages of a long sub-zero season. Here, their excellent digging skills are used for more than just finding food. They are also capable of creating cozy shelters that provide protection from the low temperatures and the vicious blizzards. Just as they may personally build their burrows from scratch, the mammal sometimes prefers rocky fissures, holes in trees, and even natural caves, where they seek shelter from the elements. Since he will spend up to several months in a restful sleep, the bear makes sure his resting place is comfortable enough, arranging it with small branches, dry leaves, and even ferns to make a kind of bed. Part of the necessary reforms to withstand the harsh winter weather also includes reducing the size of the burrow entrance, using snow or mud to insulate the burrow as much as possible from the outside. Now snuggled up in its comfortable refuge, the black bear gradually slows down its metabolism, falling into a deep sleep from which it will awaken months later, when winter begins to falter and spring makes its way. as the Himalayan black bear enters a deep hibernation at the edge of the lush alpine forest and rocky slopes. A striking deer desperately searches for even the slightest trace of food. Weighing up to 18 kilograms and measuring around 1 meter in length, the musk deer stands out as one of those ungulates that bravely survives the demanding living conditions on Everest. The musk deer is distinguished from the so-called true deer by being part of the musk deer family, something easily noticeable in its distinctive appearance. A dense, coarse brown coat, often with lighter markings on the neck and throat, provides excellent camouflage within its rocky environment, as well as when traversing dense forests. Its hind legs, noticeably longer and more muscular than its front legs, give it a hunchbacked appearance, and also provide it with unparalleled agility to move through rocky terrain, whether jumping or climbing steep surfaces. Unlike true deer, this unique species lacks characteristic antlers, instead having two long upper tusks that protrude from its mouth, measuring up to 10 centimeters. Their long canines perform precisely the same function as antlers in species such as moose and caribou, that is, acting as weapons when the right to mate with a fertile female is at stake. Although they are adapted to an elusive life, walking stealthily through the forest, avoiding contact at all costs with both their peers and other wild species. When the breeding season arrives, the males are eager to welcome these receptive females into their domains, in order to copulate as if there were no tomorrow. While most wild species find the harsh winter a hostile season where, instead of living, they can only survive, musk deer find the perfect time of year to expand their family, ushering in the mating season. In this, males full of testosterone, with the aim of attracting fertile females, will use their musk gland located in their abdomen, with which they produce a substance full of dark purple or brown pheromones, with an intense smell, capable of intoxicating those females eager to procreate. To intensify his scent, the male also tends to mark his territory with urine and feces, a behavior that works both to attract more females to his domain, and to ward off unwanted competition. The mating season for these ungulates is anything but peaceful. In the world of musk deer, reproduction is not a right, but rather a privilege, to which only the most formidable stallions have access. Since buck territories often overlap with the habitats of several does, the key to ensuring access for mating is to protect domains from invading bucks, and to incur incursions into other people's lands where receptive does are present. As soon as a resident male detects an invasion of his territory, he quickly heads to his borders, where he will confront the intruder. Before physical combat, in an attempt to avoid acts of violence, deer adopt intimidating postures, standing up to appear larger, as well as walking slowly near their rival, watching it carefully. These body postures may be accompanied by elaborate vocalizations such as hisses and moans, in an attempt to get the stranger to renounce his hostilities. When neither male decides to give in to his opponent, physical combat is inevitable. Here, with the sharp knives they carry as fangs, each deer tries to inflict the greatest damage on its opponent. With what can be up to dozens of fertile females in play, none of the combatants hesitate for even a second to show all their ferocity, attacking with their canines as well as pushing with their robust bodies. The fight often lasts for several minutes, after which one of the two males, due to fatigue and multiple injuries, decides to weaken in his intentions, abandoning the battle, and leaving his rival with the ownership rights to the territory, and consequently, with access to the females in it. During a single breeding season, a territory may be contested multiple times, requiring the resident male to fight fiercely if he wishes to retain the females within his domain. As the days pass, the females gradually come into heat, and they will then decide which male they wish to mate with. Typically, the quality and size of the territory, as well as the physical strength of the buck, will largely influence the choice of a fertile female who will be receptive for a very short period of time. After only a few minutes, intercourse is consummated, and the fertilized female leaves the way she came, while the buck remains in his territory, waiting for new receptive does to mate with. In a single breeding season, a single deer can mate with up to dozens of females, spreading his lineage far and wide. It will not be until after about 6 months that the miracle of life will be consummated, and a small fawn will open its eyes, seeing the hostile Everest for the first time. But that is still a long way off, and after an exhaustive mating season in which he focused all his efforts on competing for females, the musk deer sets out to satisfy his undemanding appetite, devouring mainly grasses, mosses, and lichens during those days when food is not especially abundant. While when the season of extravagance arrives, he prefers to eat fresh flowers and other soft plants. While the bucks are busy trying to regain all the weight they lost during the mating season, life for the does is not usually so simple, as they carry the burden of caring for the calves from the last rut, teaching them how to find food and how to hide from predators. And precisely speaking of the voracious hunters of these ungulates, among the thick vegetation of the alpine forests, the diffuse shadow of a tiny but at the same time very cunning carnivore can be seen. While the red fox, weighing no more than 14 kilograms and measuring around 90 centimeters in length, poses no threat to adult musk deer, young musk deer are not so lucky and are a favorite prey for these elusive hunters. Carefully sneaking through the forest, the canine approaches with unparalleled stealth the innocent cub, who doesn't suspect that he is in his last moments of life. With a leap, just as it appears, the wild dog disappears, but now with the small musk deer between its teeth. Although its dense, thick orange-red fur may seem to reveal its position, the truth is that it provides it with advanced camouflage, perfect for hiding from its ferocious attacks on small mammals, rodents, birds, and of course, young ungulates. Although with its advanced hunting skills, the red fox would seem to be the perfect prototype of a non-negotiable carnivore. In fact, this cunning predator does not limit itself to a meat-based diet, adopting omnivorous habits, being able to devour juicy insects, fruits, berries, roots, shoots, and of course having no objection to taking advantage of a copious carcass, becoming a scavenger. As a good opportunistic predator, this canid feeds on practically anything it encounters. Thanks to its very keen senses of sight and smell, it can easily locate hares, mice, insects, fresh fruit, or tender roots. Since the bulk of its diet consists of small rodents, the red fox is a specialist in hunting them. Lurking cautiously among dense vegetation, the canid uses the cover of the ground to ensure the element of surprise in its attack. With an unsuspecting rodent in its sights, the fox takes to the air and lands with its front paws on its prey, in a technique known as mouse jumping, in which it snatches its helpless prey with its paws or its sharp bite, whether it is in the grass or under a thick layer of snow. For those rodents that make the mistake of emitting the quietest squeak when the red fox is lurking, not even its underground burrow represents an impregnable refuge against this dog's hunting skills. In just a few seconds, this cunning predator can burrow up to several meters underground, raiding the burrows of mice, voles, and marmots, giving them a painful death, and taking a hearty meal in the process. Even extremely agile prey like hares are unable to escape this predator's lethal bite. As being capable of running at high speeds in short bursts, the fox will not let such a tasty prey escape. But not everything in the life of the red fox is hunting and instilling fear in dozens of wild species. With a full stomach, this intelligent canine can take things a bit easier, spending much of its day resting in comfortable dens, or even in thick undergrowth. Like the snow leopard, This mammal also uses its bushy tail as a scarf, curling up in it during its peaceful rests, and gaining a few extra degrees of body heat. Speaking of the ferocious ghost of the mountain, leaving aside all the acts of savagery that the red fox perpetrates on small mammals and tiny rodents, being a mesopredator, it sometimes has to witness how the food chain turns against it. And this is precisely when cruel predators such as the snow leopard, black bears, Himalayan wolves, and even birds of prey come into play. Of course, for these carnivores to get their claws and fearsome bites on the dog, they must first find it. Its highly stealthy behavior is one of its survival measures to avoid falling into the crosshairs of one of the rulers of the Everest food chain. Moving with extreme caution among the vegetation, the fox goes completely unnoticed, not even giving the slightest sign of its presence. If, in a twist of events, it is detected by a larger predator, this wild dog is not usually eager to demonstrate its courage by engaging in a fight that will, no matter what, end with its death. Instead, when directly threatened, it will rely on its enviable agility and launch a swift escape through the forest, running at up to 50 kilometers per hour, far from the clutches of its pursuers. Often, their destination after these fleeting retreats is a comfortable burrow, where they find refuge both from the harsh weather conditions of the outdoors and from the ravages wrought by predators who see them as prey. With the resourceful red fox sheltering in its cozy burrow in the lower reaches of the mountain, ascending to an altitude of 7,500 meters, this majestic bird of prey is more than accustomed to seeing everything from above. With a wingspan of over 3 meters and weighing up to 8 kilograms, the bearded vulture is a true winged giant of the mountain. Living on desolate, steep cliffs at the most extreme heights, this bird of prey is probably one of the highest living wild species on the planet. Its striking plumage in shades of dark gray and blue-black on its back and wings, and an underside tinged with gradients from cream to deep orange, makes this bird stand out against a horizon where nothing but arid rocks can be seen for miles. Although the plumage on the areas of its trunk is really light, its peculiar habit of taking mineral baths in iron oxide pools gives it this striking orange coloration. On his head, a black mask around his eyes steals the show. This mask extends downward, forming a characteristic stiff feathered mustache, giving him a bearded appearance. Their unique behavior of living thousands of meters above sea level is justified by their very particular eating habits. And it is not for nothing that this majestic bird is called the bearded vulture. Flying from towering heights, this ace of the skies, with the aid of his keen eyesight, carefully scans the ground, searching for any remains of a corpse that has fallen victim to Everest's hectic wildlife. While sometimes it doesn't need to fly more than a few hundred meters to find potential prey, during leaner days the bird can fly for several kilometers, showing its cunning by allowing itself to be carried by the powerful wind currents, thus avoiding unnecessary energy expenditure. Upon finding the location of a carcass, the bearded vulture immediately pounces on what, for it, is a feast. Upon landing, he finds that what was once a gigantic ungulate is now only a few half-eaten bones, precisely all he needs to satisfy his appetite. The bird, without a second thought, takes one of the bones with its beak or claws and takes flight again to the heights, where it is about to demonstrate all its ingenuity. Rising to a height of about 50 meters, the bearded vulture, living up to its name, drops the bone it was carrying, and in just a few seconds, as it falls on sharp rocks or scree, It breaks into several tiny pieces. Immediately, just a few seconds later, the bird lands at the collision site, where it swallows the pieces of bone whole. Thanks to a specialized digestive system, led by an extremely acidic stomach, this bird is able to digest bones with shocking ease. Although bones represent up to 90% of its food intake, when it swallows them, the bearded vulture actually does so with the sole intention of consuming the nutritious marrow inside. Along with the bones and marrow within them, the bird usually ingests fragments of attached meat and ligaments, as well as occasionally skin and wool from the carcasses. Upon finding some substantial carrion remains, this master of the heights repeats this process countless times until he manages to satisfy his enormous appetite. In a single session, the bearded vulture can eat up to 1 kilogram of food. Sometimes, when the remains of a carcass contain smaller bones, the bearded vulture, also known as the bearded vulture, skips the step of taking its food to the heights and swallows the bones without having to grind them. After having enjoyed devouring a far from light meal, the vulture returns to its home in the heights, where it spends considerable time resting on rocky outcrops and cliffs. Since its flight skills are crucial for its diet, this weevil spends much of its day caring for its plumage, slowly preening it and removing any vegetation or carrion from it to keep it in optimal condition for flight. Their habit of rubbing themselves on the ground and in puddles rich in iron oxides could also provide beneficial benefits for the care of their plumage, eliminating parasites, and maintaining the health of their feathers. The reddish-orange coloration of their feathers also plays an important role in the social life of these birds. In the complex world of bearded vultures, more vibrant tones in their feathers mean greater vitality and strength, characteristics associated with the most experienced and long-lived birds. Bright hues in the plumage are also considered a sign of good health and genetics among females, so they also represent a peculiar way of guaranteeing access to copulation. The reproductive process of bearded vultures is both interesting and unusual. As with musk deer, mating takes place in the middle of winter, when conditions are more hostile than ever. After an elaborate courtship display in which both birds perform spectacular acrobatic flights as a pair, with turns, chases, and dives, and in which the male may even offer small gifts in the form of wool or bone, the long-awaited moment for the male finally occurs in a copulation that, although it may be extremely brief, the birds may repeat it several times in order to guarantee reproductive success. The eggs are laid by the female in a cozy nest thousands of meters high, where they will be incubated for approximately 55 days, after which, between 1 and 2 small chicks will hatch, emerging from the eggs as tiny naked and blind chicks, who will require the meticulous care of their parents. Although bearded vultures live thousands of meters above sea level and boast a lack of natural predators, unfortunately, the greatest threat to their survival is none other than human influence in their highly isolated ecosystems. The use of poisoned bait by local ranchers is causing serious damage to bearded vulture populations, which accidentally fall into these traps and die a painful death. The use of the body parts of these birds of prey by some local cultures is another practice that contributes to the decline of their populations. The red panda is another of those wild inhabitants of the slopes of Everest that is cruelly threatened as a result of human interference in what was previously a completely pristine ecosystem. The loss of their habitat due to increasing deforestation is gradually destroying the lowland forests of this high-altitude ecosystem. While large-scale deforestation is not permitted on Everest, the rise of tourism means that more infrastructure is needed, as well as more resources such as firewood. Not even the almighty snow leopard escapes the repercussions of human activities in its inhospitable habitat. This glorious feline, currently classified as a vulnerable species, is seriously threatened by dangers such as the rise of poaching. With the aim of selling its skin and bones on the black market, ruthless poachers take on the task of stalking this feline, even going so far as to end its life in an act of pure savagery. For the giant wild yak, the story is more of the same. The threat of hybridization with the domestic yak, as well as illegal hunting and competition for grazing land with domestic livestock, makes survival a challenge for this ungulate. Even the indomitable packs of wolves are not immune to seeing their chances of survival compromised by a very bleak outlook. As a result of poaching, as well as frequent conflicts with livestock farmers, these dogs now face an uncertain future, with a reduced population of no more than 400 individuals, placing the species in critical danger of extinction. But not all is lost. Currently, programs aimed at preserving these dogs are being implemented, focusing on captive breeding and legal protection of the species. Although the challenges may be numerous, it is an important first step on a long road to saving these majestic creatures from extinction. From the towering yaks to the reclusive snow leopard to the tiny pikas, Everest's wildlife today faces numerous challenges stemming from our encroachment into their isolated ecosystem. So it is our sole responsibility to champion measures that preserve the priceless wildlife on the roof of the world. Have you been amazed by the stories of Mount Everest's wild creatures? So leave us your like, and don't forget to comment on your favorite species. Remember, to stay up to date with our upcoming releases, you can subscribe and click the notification bell. If you want your friends to also learn about the natural wonders hidden within the peaks and slopes of the world's highest mountain, you can share this video on your social media. Without further ado, we'll see you next time with more stories of icy winters, stealthy felines, and of course, stories of wild lives.